Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. The next update for the War Within expansion, patch 11.05, currently doesn't have a release date, though it is rumored that it should be arriving sometime in October, probably October the 20th. And while this update is going to primarily focus on WoW's 20th anniversary with time walking festivities, a brand new raid, brand new dungeons, and brand new events for you to partake in, it's also going to implement quite a number of class changes, some of which are probably going to help shake up the meta for endgame content. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to endgame stuff, or if you simply want to be the first to experience some of the newest and some of the best class changes as soon as the update arrives, then I got a list of classes for you to start getting ready before the 11.05 update. I've spent so far quite a considerable amount of time over on the PTR exploring a lot of these newer changes, and I think right now 4 classes are easily sharing the spotlight. Mostly because they're getting some of the best improvements that got many players in those class communities very excited for the 11.05 update. So here are the 4 classes you should probably start getting ready right now before 20th anniversary. As always, if you guys want to see more regular War Within videos like these over on the channel, be sure to follow and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Out of all the classes that you should be excited for, you should definitely put Hunter at the top of that list, because Dark Rangers, the hero specs in particular, one of the more exciting hero specs that never quite really came to fruition when it comes to class fantasy, is getting the remake that it deserves. It's an insanely iconic hero spec of Dark Ranger that's been around forever, and ever since it hit the alpha and the beta, it just never really quite hit the mark with the player community. And overall in 11.05, it's probably seen the biggest set of improvements by far. You got a lot of cool thematic stuff like summoning shadow crows to attack your target, you get banshee wings whenever you pop your major cooldowns, and Black Arrow is a bit more interactive. It instead will now replace the ability of kill shot, and there is now exist a ton more talent synergies for marksman and beast mastery that allow you to incorporate that empowered kill shot a little bit more as part of your regular rotation. I mean, all 300 specs are getting the ability of Death Blow and replacing the improved kill shot talent within the class challenge tree, which allows all 3 specs to be able to utilize the ability of kill shot outside of its mandated use of an execute range of the enemy target, which means marksmanship, beast mastery, and even survival are all going to be able to fire off kill shots in multiple different ways, and both marksman and beast mastery are getting a bunch of new talents and a bit of a refresher, a lot of which are going to help synergize with that kill shot ability. For marksmanship, we're getting some cleanup when it comes to some of the redundant talents, while also synergizing and standardizing their gameplay a little bit with some of the changes where they won't be cannibalizing nearly as many procs with talents such as precise shots. For Beastmaster, we see new ways that they're trying to reincorporate the ability of Cobra Shot. Not exactly as a mandated rotational abilities that you'll have to start using now, but even allowing abilities like auto attacks to use Cobra Shot for free. And those Cobra Shots can build up damage that can empower your pet, which allows you to reintegrate Cobra Shots in a way where you're still using them, but not necessarily making them part of your core base rotation. And even the specs like Survival Hunter, which saw a lot of play during the early alpha and beta, but didn't quite translate that popularity over to the live realms, are seeing even more rotational improvements, which they really needed to. And they should be able to get a fairly sizable giga version of Butchery going forward, which should hopefully increase the overall AoE potential. And I'm hoping that Survival will really make a return back into the spotlight, because it was literally one of the most, if not the most popular class spec out of most melee classes throughout its time during alpha and the beta. And that popularity just didn't quite translate into the live realms like it did with arcane mages, elemental shamans, enhancement shamans for that matter too, and other playstyles like Frost and Death Knights. So hopefully we'll see Survival back up on top, or at least in a bit more of a favorable position going forward after the drop of 11.05 update. The next class we're looking forward to would be the class of Shaman, specifically if you're a fan of Elemental or Enhancement, which are getting a huge bulk of these upcoming changes, but also the fantastic new additions of the new Ascendance forms that are coming out as well, as those look absolutely fantastic. I like the stuff they've done so far over the PTR, how they had the original version, and then there was a new version, and then there was a third version based on community feedback. And the fact that you can unlock all 3 versions, whether you would like the classic version, crazy hair option, or like the more armored version, you can be able to switch in out as much as you want to with glyphs, which you can purchase easily from the Shaman Order Hall. So Shamans are getting quite a bit of extra cosmetics for their Ascended forms that are now going to be utilized a little bit more for both Elemental and Enhancement. For Elemental in particular, we saw a weird thing with them during the development period of War Within, where they were very heavy on lava and elemental blast damage, mostly ignoring lightning bolt. Then Life came out and they kind of did the reverse, where they pulled back on the fire damage, but then lightning reigned supreme, where you basically almost never press lava burst. And they're trying to find a middle ground between the two elements and really find a way to combine them together. Even talents that are mostly fire-based, like Ascendants, are getting a change up, where now it's going to buff your mastery, which benefits both elements, so you're encouraged to play into Ascendants whether you play as lightning or whether you play as fire. And some of those core fire talents are now getting a bit more value as lightning, and some of the core lightning talents are getting a bit more value as fire, so now you can mix and match both builds in order to figure out exactly the right combination you're looking for. You don't need to be fully invested into one thematic or another thematic option, but you can kind of meld them together a bit better into something that resembles a bit more diverse variety. And while Enhancement isn't getting too many new core changes, they're getting some rotational adjustments and some maneuvering within their talent tree so they can optimize their talent points a little bit better, plus a handful of new talents that create new synergies, like a Flame Shock becoming this Nature Shock that can now cleave targets depending on your procs, and even abilities like Ghost Rules can now either be a Summon Spirit or a Passive Spirit that gets summoned automatically. But with the current hero set, where every time they summon a wolf, they get an extra one, it can really quickly get out of control. We can have up to, I think, 9 wolves at a time is what the most I've been able to get so far. But another thing they're doing for enhancement is Stormbringer has been a very popular choice for many enhancement shamans out there, but Totemic in some cases feels left behind. So they're really giving a lot more love and a bit of a revamp to Totemic that allows them to harness some of that RNG that shamans play around with, like with talents of Hot Hand, for example. What if instead of having to play around melee auto attack swings that have a 5% chance to proc it, what if instead you can control when you have a Hot Hand window with the Totemic playstyle that gives you a very specific combination of abilities that can be utilized consistently, allowing you to take that RNG and harness it to give Shaman the consistency that it really needs sometimes. Now, another class that's getting a couple of updates, which I'm super excited about, is the class of Rogue. And honestly, Finally, this class is getting some changes, which, not surprisingly, but it was very lacking in that department during the entirety of Alpha and Beta, and for months did it go through no changes whatsoever, to its detriment, however. For the most part with Rogues, they're not really changing too much when it comes to the core gameplay. Outlaws are still firing off the pistols at anyone that even gives a glint in their direction. Assassination Rogues are still going to be core bleeds and poisons, while Subtlety is going to be very heavy on cooldowns, planning, and massive burst damage. But they're cleaning up a couple of aspects and are giving more opportunities for certain talents to be able to work together with the class and spec talent trees. Like, for example, one of the most confusing mechanics of Weapon Replement is getting adjusted, so it's instead going to be called Supercharger, where basically when you use a basic class ability like Shiv, Symbols of Death, Roll the Bones, it supercharges your next finisher to basically make it more empowered. And this works for more than just game-edge finishers, like Slice and Dice can last longer, Ruptures can bleed out enemies for a longer period of time, as well as all the talents that can synergize with some of these finishers, like cooldown reduction mechanic for Outlaw Rogue, for instance. So it allows you to harness multiple facets of Rogue, not just raw damage output with those finishers, which makes it a much better talent, but also one that is much easier for newer players to understand. And of course, each Rogue spec is also going to be getting a handful of new talents. For Assassination specifically, some of their stealth-based talents such as Indiscriminate Carnage, Improved Garrote, and even Master Assassin don't really have a long window for you to be able to utilize the stealth-based gameplay, so it makes talents like Double Vanish less good, but they're making Subterfuge function where it actually extends the duration of some of those stealth-based abilities, so a much longer Cleave Bleed window for Carnage, much better Improved Garrote that generates additional damage that you can spread to multiple targets, but also Master Assassin giving you longer crit window during your burst opener. For Outlaw Rogue, it's very simple. You like Crackshot? Of course you do. You like firing a gun and getting those resets on it. So now Crackshot is definitely not going away, but they're making it even better. When you vanish, it actually now resets the cooldown of your Between the Eyes ability. So you can just kind of pop out of stealth, fire off your gun, and as soon as the shots run out, vanish to reload, and then go back in there yet again. It actually simplifies the playstyle even further, where you shoot, then vanish, then shoot, then vanish. Subtlety Rogues are actually getting a brand new talent in the talent tree called Death Perception that increases the amount of charges they have of one of the main core cooldowns, which is Symbols of Death. You like cooldowns and you like dealing damage in those cooldowns? Well, what if he gave you even more cooldowns for your cooldowns? Which gives him a pretty big opportunity to change up and sway how you end up using your cooldowns as a subtlety rogue, give it a much meatier, burstier windows, but also means that the spec can essentially have no downtime whatsoever, because now you can shift your cooldowns around so freely and easily. Also, Flagellation as an ability is no longer a 1.5 minute cooldown, it is now reduced down to a minute cooldown. And now Aura Core Subtlety Rogues are much happier because it has better synergy with the rest of your cooldowns, which makes the spec play even smoother than before. And to finish off our list, we have the class of Mage, which has to be Blizzard's favorite so far, all the way throughout War Within Alpha, War Within Beta, as well as the live realms. We've been trying to track as many classes as I could throughout the development of this expansion, and Mage kept popping up as a class with continuous improvements, even more talents. The class all of a sudden is just doing broken damage over in Testing Realms. They end up buffing it some more and then continuing to buff it, and here we are, where Arcane Mage is easily one of the top tier DPS specs that you can play as a ranged option so far for this expansion, with Frost and Fire not really that far behind, to be honest, and they're continuing to see even more improvements and buffs going forward. I guess sometimes the rich do keep getting richer. For the hero specs, they're seeing adjustments to non-Sunfury playstyles, so like Spellslinger for instance, and Frostfire getting a couple of new talents and a couple of new synergies to try to bring up those playstyles a little bit more towards the forefront. And hopefully Spellslinger in particular does see a lot more play, because during the early alpha and beta, it was actually incredibly fun to play as an Arcane Mage and as a Frost Mage. So hopefully we'll see even more Spellslingers going forward, but Sunfury is a very powerful option, and something tells me that it's going to continue to be this way going forward. Arcane Mages are obviously a very strong choice, but they do have problems of their own, as they lack quite a bit of that talent variety. They don't have a lot of builds. They're very powerful classes, very competitive, but they only have like one playstyle with a couple of talent alterations you can do, but there's a lot of dead options and dead talents that are not getting a lot of play. So that's part of their focus for the next build, is to try to freshen up some of those talents that don't really see a lot of play to make it more of a compelling option. But also, they're doing something crazy for them that a lot of mages are excited about. You see, mages have been playing around a bug called Nether Precision. Consuming clear casting increases the damage of the next two Arcane Blasts and Arcane Barrages by 20%. Normally, only one of these abilities can consume Nether Precision, but if let's say you have the final charge of Nether Precision and you're casting Arcane Blast and then you immediately follow it up with an Arcane Barrage as the blast goes flying, both of the abilities get to double dip into Nether Precision stacks. So both of them get the 20% additional damage, which has been a bug for Arcane Mages, but a bug that players have enjoyed so much that they basically allowed it to be a bug and let it be a rotational ability for now. But they're changing it a little bit with a new talent called Aether Vision, where consuming Nether Precision with Arcane Blast increases the damage of the next Arcane Barrage by 10% and causes Arcane Barrages to generate Arcane charges back to the mage, stack it up to 2 times. So they're finding ways to convert this bugged mechanic into an actual intended mechanic as part of the base gameplay, and there's so many cool things that they could do with that resource generation and additional damage and the stacks that they can generate. There's things that a mage is discovering on the PTR that can potentially tie together with this type of a talent, and overall the talent changes they're giving them right now looks like it may allow for them some breathing room and creativity to be able to customize their talent builds in new ways. That being said, as long as everything is tuned appropriately, as it really tuning comes down to everything when it comes to the development period and process. But seriously, if you're not playing a mage right now, you're missing out. And if you're not preparing a mage going forward for 1105, which is the class that's continuing to get changes, and I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to improve upon them as the expansion went on, because they've just had such a good track record so far. I feel like they're one of the safer range DPS options, at least to play around as an alt from time to time. And trust me when I say this, they're incredibly fun. But with that being said, that's probably going to be the entire list of classes you should start working on leveling right now in preparation for the 1105. Or if you want to, you can utilize the XP buff that's going to be available during the WoW's 20th anniversary. As always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope all of you enjoyed. If you did enjoy it or found this video informative as to figuring out which class you should probably level next, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community to continue the class discussion for any of the upcoming 1105 class updates and revamps. And also, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.